Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now let's talk about the Robert Guerrero-David Peralta fight. This is a fight I'm going to regret for a long time. It was a missed opportunity, one that I should have been smarter about. Now, David Peralta, before this fight, was a 60-1 and greater underdog, right? Not in my wildest dreams did I think that Robert Guerrero would get methodically outboxed by a fighter who recently beat a guy with a sub-500 record, right? Struggled in a 4-round fight and won a 6-round fight, all within his last 5 or 6 fights, right? I looked at Peralta's film. I thought, okay, this guy is limited. The Ghost is still an elite fighter. As I said in the pre-fight video, I thought the Ghost wasn't himself anymore, that he was past his prime, but that I just did not see the Ghost, especially at this stage of his career, where he needed a win, allowing this match to slip away, right? Opportunities like this don't come around that often. If you want to find a group that will adjust the odds quickly based on new information, right, that group is called the casinos. Right? The casinos are never again against any kind of halfway functional fighter. In other words, a fighter who can stand on 2 legs. They're never again going to give you 60-1 odds. 60-1 odds on any opponent fighting Robert the Ghost Guerrero. Right? Never again, in my opinion. They gave you better than 60-1 odds here. Knowing that Guerrero was diminished, we should have taken at least a bit of a flyer in putting some part of our portfolio on the 60-1 underdog. Now I've put, and it's a very important film for handicappers, I've put the film of the fight in my favorites folder here online. You need to look at that film carefully. Let me say this. Age is really a subtle thing. As you're watching someone get older, it's hard to answer the question on whether they are performing at a lower level than they were, a year or 2 earlier. But in baseball, a highly quantified sport, we know that guys who were .330 hitters eventually become, most of them, .290 hitters, right? We know that running backs who in their 20s were averaging 4.7 yards per carry eventually drop down to 4.3 yards per carry, right? We remember people like O.J. Simpson at the position in his 30s, Emmitt Smith at the position in his 30s. Now in boxing, there's a saying, and these sayings have a lot of truth to them, in my opinion, that the legs are the first to go. What leaps out at me in almost every minute of the film of the Robert Guerrero Peralta fight is the fact that Guerrero's legs look like they're in concrete blocks compared to Peralta, right? Peralta's just moving much faster than Guerrero. Peralta's just picking when to come in and when to go out. Guerrero cannot follow him around the ring. While Guerrero is standing up, while he's coordinated, I'm just telling you that Robert Guerrero's legs are gone, right? It's over. For him to be competitive against a world-class fighter, that fighter is going to have either an addiction to fighting in the pocket, right? Some fighters will come to you. That's what they know, right? Or the fighter himself is going to have to be wearing cement boots, right? Is going to just not want to take the easy path to success of moving around the ring against a fighter who, because of age, can't move, right? It's jarring because you see their hand speeds and it's clear that Guerrero has the faster hands. Peralta's a bit awkward. Guerrero has the edge in fluidity. In other words, when they actually exchange punches, right? When it gets to the point where they're throwing a series of punches at each other, Guerrero looks better than Peralta. But understand, Peralta is able to just back away. Guerrero can't find him. Then Peralta comes in. Let me say this. Another sign of an older fighter, and it's apparent here, is a dimming of the reflexes. Peralta comes in, throws right hands, and Guerrero just can't anticipate the punch. Right now, this has been a disturbing trend in Guerrero fights. Look at the connect percentage on Floyd Mayweather's right hand when the two of them fought. Now, we forgave Guerrero because he was fighting a master in that fight, right? He was fighting a surefire Hall of Famer, an unbeaten fighter in that fight. Well, here he was fighting a journeyman, a guy who came in the ring with multiple losses, right? A guy who was supplementing his income by driving a cab. Right? Peralta is the proverbial cab driver, not to diss cab drivers, right? You've had some great fighters who were cab drivers. But just understand, Peralta and Floyd Mayweather are very unlikely to be found in the same sentence. Robert Guerrero could not anticipate David Peralta's right hand. Now, the great Muhammad Ali said that when he was older, he understood boxing better. Right? He saw the punches coming better. As he put it, he just couldn't get out of the way of them. Right? Robert the Ghost Guerrero simply cannot get out of the way of a straight right hand. Right? They say to beat a southpaw, and Guerrero's a southpaw, you throw straight right hands. It's just jarring to see an elite southpaw unable to deal with them when that's pretty much all the other guy is throwing that's effective. Let me say this too, another sign of age. And understand, I was a younger man once. I know this. When I'm not coughing, from experience, right? Older guys hate to admit it, but we know it. Stamina. One judge gave Peralta all 8 of the last 8 rounds. Every one of them. Now, I know Guerrero's upset with the scoring. He's saying, hey man, I was robbed. Right? The Guerrero group is saying, hey, no way I lost 8 rounds in this fight. By the way, that should tell you that Guerrero started the fight well. This wasn't an off night. This is a night that midstream became an off night. That's even more disturbing. Right? Guerrero got figured out during the fight. Peralta's the one who made the adjustments. So if you think the judge who gave Peralta the last 8 rounds did Guerrero a disservice, was just throwing darts at a dartboard, was just flipping a coin, I need for you to realize that a second judge, independent set of eyes, gave Peralta 7 of the last 8 rounds. In other words, 2 independent judges. If you add up 8 plus 8, gave Peralta 15 of the last 16 rounds. So, I know there are conspiracy theorists here online. They're going to say, hey, well, the judges were in some promoter's back pocket. These judges must have been treated to a steak dinner. Understand that Showtime's own Steve Farhood gave Peralta 6 of the last 8 rounds. 6. He gave the last round, and I think this is curious, he gave the last round to Robert the Ghost Guerrero. In other words, going into the last round, Steve Farhood had Peralta winning 6 of the previous 7 rounds. So let me say this, before this cold has my stamina dropping even more in this video. I know Guerrero was upset after the fight. I know he said, hey, I was robbed. That's a statement by a fighter in the heat of the moment who has not had an opportunity to review the fight film. Understand, Farhood had the fight a draw. This is the guy from Showtime, independent of the judges. And again, that's based on Guerrero winning the 12th round. I would encourage you to score the 12th round. I thought that's clearly a Peralta round. Let's go one step further. Guerrero got the benefit of the doubt, and he deserved it. I thought the ref was correct in not having a punch scored a knockdown in around the 9th round or so. He gets hit, he falls back into the ropes or the ring apron, right? Falls back into it. The ref didn't call that a slip, didn't call it a knockdown, right? Now understand, the ring apron is not supposed to hold you up. Anytime you're hit and the only thing holding you up is the ring apron, that's supposed to be a knockdown. Had the ref felt that that was a knockdown, Peralta's margin of victory would have been even bigger. Now, as it was, it looked like the guy's feet got tangled right before the punch. Make no mistake, the punch lands, but the feet were tangled. And apparently in situations like that, a referee has discretion on tangled feet to not call it a knockdown. Right? Just understand, though, that that's how bad it was for Guerrero. He got breaks in the fight, right? A possible knockdown not called a knockdown. And still, he ended up losing all 8 of the last 8 on one judge's card, and 7 of the last 8 on another, and 6 of the last 8 on Steve Farhood's card. Right? The consistency here, scoring-wise, is with Peralta dominating the latter part of the fight. Let me go one step further. The film is even more interesting. because the film hints at the hometown advantage in Southern California that Robert the Ghost Guerrero had. Now look, I'm in Northern California. I know the Ghost is from Gilroy. Fair enough. But can we agree that there were more people in the stands for this fight rooting for Robert the Ghost Guerrero at the beginning of the fight than there were for David Peralta, who's from Argentina? So as you listen to the telecast, you're going to hear the announcers tell you that while Peralta is landing some flush shots, while you're watching this right hand come in and land, right? They actually say around like the 7th or 8th rounds, well, Peralta has landed some shots, but they haven't hurt Robert Guerrero. That's the difference in the fight. Right? This is that rare fight where as you're watching it, you're thinking, look, I know these announcers are well-intentioned, but on my scorecard, this fight is close. On my scorecard, the opponent, David Peralta, is doing better than these announcers are giving him credit for. So let me say this. Apart from me getting this fight wrong and not being on the right side of the play and not having at least a taste at 60-1 odds, right? And that's something I'm just going to scratch my head at for a while, right? Because I think we all sense that Robert the Ghost Guerrero was slowing down before this fight, right? When you see 60-1 odds in a fight involving a fighter who, quite frankly, has had deteriorating skills, has hit the canvas in 2 recent fights, right, has been in shootouts in the fights he's won, then even if it's $1, if your casino allows it, even if it's $1, you should hedge your play. You should do something to try to get a taste, right? But apart from that, you know, my own personal regrets, I have no problem with the decision. I don't feel that Robert the Ghost Guerrero got robbed in the slightest. Right? He didn't get robbed. He just got old. Right? His legs aren't there. That's the number one message from this fight. He can't move around the ring. His legs aren't there. His reflexes aren't there. His stamina is not there. Right? It's not an off night. It's the off part of his career. Right? As I said before in this video, for him to win, he's going to need a guy who is addicted to fighting in the pocket. He's going to need a guy who isn't going to use the entire ring. He's going to need a guy, an opponent, who fades in the latter part of fights. Understand how bad it is for Robert Guerrero. Look at his record. He hasn't gotten a knockout for years. He's hoping to beat you these days by decision, but he doesn't have the legs to follow you around the ring. Right? And let me add this. Because he has a problem blocking a straight right hand, he's going to need a guy who doesn't know when to throw one. Right? David Peralta on this night was simply the better man. Right? That's how I saw the fight. Let's go one step further. Robert the Ghost Guerrero's well connected. He's loved. He has a gorgeous wife. People know that he stood by his wife when she had health problems. Let me say this too, and I don't say it lightly, right? Because I'm a guy who loves diversity, right? I know I come across clean cut here on YouTube videos. You know, I was raised in a very West Indian neighborhood, right? I myself was born in Kingston, Jamaica. Right, a lot of the people I knew growing up had dreadlocks back when it wasn't a fashion statement. Right? Robert the Ghost Guerrero's father in a sport where Latinos really are, because of, image people and trying to placate sponsors, in a sport where Latinos are kind of forced to play down, in my opinion, play down their heritage. Right? Robert the Ghost Guerrero's father is really an essential, needed figure in the sport of boxing. Right? He's an older Latino male who, is proud of his heritage. Dresses, carries himself as a Latino. Right? Kind of like Danny Garcia's father used to be. Right? For Puerto Ricans, he kind of like leads his son into battle. You notice him during fights. You can just sense Guerrero's pride at his Latino heritage. Right? Now, I have no doubt that because Guerrero is loved by fans, right? Because Guerrero is a bit different than some of these other guys who are trying desperately to appeal to corporate sponsors. I'm guessing Guerrero's career is going to go on because fans are going to want to see him. Perhaps a promoter can strategically pick opponents for him. Right? Maybe he's a big name who's non-threatening to a young lion trying to establish his dominance in a part of the jungle. Right? But we as gamblers can't be fooled. Just like I'm just pinching myself at not having the intelligence to pick a 60-1 underdog. Right? Against Guerrero, a fighter who himself fades later in fights. Right? We as gamblers need to realize that as good a guy as Robert the Ghost Guerrero is, as good a story as Robert the Ghost Guerrero is, as good as he's been for boxing, he's more past than present. Right? I have little doubt that a Terence Crawford could come up from 140 and beat the Ghost if he wanted to show his abilities at 147. Right? Terence Crawford, by the way, and people need to keep track of this story, has been calling out Danny Garcia, who dodged Victor Postal when he was at the lower weight class. Right? Crawford wants a chance to end Garcia's unbeaten streak. It would be a battle of unbeatens. But let's just say this. The Ghost, I have little doubt in my mind that a Sean Porter would beat him badly. Right? I think with the Ghost, matchmakers are going to have to be careful. Right? He's a fan favorite who's no longer a pugilistic expert. Right? That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I know I've said some hard things in this video. Trust me, no one wants to talk about, a fighter getting past his prime. Right? I know that's not the kind of thing that people do in interviewing a fighter. Hey, Vladimir Klitschko, are you past your prime? Right? No. But, we're not beholden to the fighters or to the sponsors. Right? Even though I have sponsors here online. We're really a gambling community beholden to other gamblers. Right? And the bottom line is, Robert the Ghost Guerrero, 5 years ago, badly beats this current version of Robert the Ghost Guerrero. Father Time is gonna beat all of us. Right? Unfortunately, because these fighters are taped and they live in public, you notice it a lot when they're in the ring. Right? I think the storm clouds are out on Robert the Ghost Guerrero's career. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video if you're one of the fortunate few who in the spirit of Leicester City in the Premier League. Pick the underdog here, David Peralta, because you had the ghost on your list of suspect fighters at this point of their careers. I hope you leave those betting stories in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.